Hello, my name is Samantha Silverman, and I am the CEO of Silver Linings Mental Health.
What inspired you to get into the mental health field?
Great question. I actually went through the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks, and in the aftermath of 9/11, I went through horrible anxiety, insomnia, depression, and survivor's guilt. I struggled for months following the attacks until I finally sought the help of mental health counselors. And I met weekly with a therapist and I started finding post-traumatic growth after the attacks. And after that, I decided that I wanted to go back to school and pursue a career in mental health, which I did a couple years after 9/11.
Yeah, how does creating your own business help your own healing process?
It's interesting running a business and going through a healing process are two very different things. I would say that being a therapist for so many years and still having that core identity of being a therapist just has really helped me when I have issues running the business. When I go through times of frustration or angst, tend to draw on the tools of being a therapist and, expressing gratitude, being gentle on myself, and making sure that I, partake in self-care so I don't burn out.
What is it like being a therapist?
What is it like being a therapist? I would say that it's like any other job, any other field. It's just more gratifying. It's more validating when you feel like you're helping people and like you're making a difference. It's also really funny how others sometimes will observe you or think that you are observing them. I have a lot of friends and family who I'll be out with them and I'll just be intently listening to a conversation that we're having. And they'll say to me, "Are you psychoanalyzing me right now?" And I think that psychoanalyzing your friends and family is just something that almost comes naturally. You're always psychoanalyzing everyone when you're a therapist, and you're not doing it on purpose. There's no on or off button. It just is a natural occurrence of being a therapist.
What are some of your methods?
So some of my methods that I utilize with clients, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm also a real believer of EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And EMDR actually helps those who have gone through a traumatic event unlock that trauma that is negatively stored in the brain and allows that trauma to be processed in a healthy, supportive environment.
When you work with your clients, do you see their confidence level rise as they go through the process?
I would say it depends on the client. If,
Okay.
yes, it depends on the client and if they put the work in and if they're open to help and if they're open to insight. I would say that those clients that I've had in the past who have been open, yes, their confidence rises, changes are made, new pathways are formed. I will say that clients that are closed off to counseling or maybe forced into counseling by a family member, they're not always as open to the process and they don't always put forth the effort. And I would say those are the ones where change is really difficult for them.
That brings actually a good point is I live with bipolar disorder too, and I tried therapy on and off for a few years, and it just maybe the stigma or something like that. And then finally, once I got treatment for uh, bipolar disorder, I started seeing therapists regularly, and it helped so much. So, do you think the stigma is one of the things that scares people away?
Definitely. I think that Therapy used to be so much more stigmatized than it is today. After the pandemic, I do feel like therapy was just less stigmatized. People were more open to receiving therapy. I do feel like in the past, there was like a negative connotation with having to admit that you needed to talk to somebody and that you needed help. And a lot of therapists use the analogy of if you have a sickness or a medical condition, you need to go to a doctor. You need to get that help. And if you have a mental health condition, it's the same thing. If you have a mental health condition, you need to talk to somebody. You need to engage in therapy. I'm really glad that you have engaged in therapy yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, it has helped a lot. Just letting all my feelings out, because if you do it like with family members, sometimes they're a part of the process. Sometimes it gets a little
Yes,
tough.
well, yeah, and the hard things with family members or even friends sometimes is that number one, they're not trained mental health
Right.
experts, and they don't know the questions to ask. And number two, it's a reciprocal relationship. People sometimes get tired of hearing about a loved one's recurrent issues. And when you have a relationship, you want to have that reciprocity of, give and take. And when you're utilizing a close friend or family member as your own personal therapist, you are not giving and taking to that relationship. So you want to have a trained mental health expert that is there for you. Your session, that hour, it's usually once a week. That hour is specifically for you. It's all about you. It has nothing to do with your therapist. Your therapist does not want to tell you about their weekend or where they're traveling to or how they're feeling. It is all about the client.
For you, with lived experience, do you think it makes it easier to talk to other people with lived experience to just share your feelings out there?
Uh, Yes and no. I kind of like I like talking to people with lived experiences and those that don't yet have lived experiences. I actually love working with young adults. I love mentoring. And again, going back to those who are open to therapy, I think that a middle-aged individual, such as myself, I'm middle-aged, speaking to a younger adult can really have an impact on that young adult's trajectory and on their path. And I love mentoring. So in that situation, I would say that I don't necessarily need to speak to somebody with a similar lived experience, but when I do speak with with somebody who has a similar lived experience, there definitely is that communal feeling of, like I get you, you belong. And I would say that a bond is more easily formed.
When I was doing my research, I saw that you were a part of an article about AI and teens. So, what is it like being a teen and talking to them?
Yeah, it's different nowadays compared to
Yeah.
how I grew up, especially. I'm in a whole different generation. Talking to teens, you really have to take the lens of technology. You can't ignore technology. You have to understand their social media accounts, or some parents prohibit social media accounts, but you really have to understand what it is that they engage in, because whatever that technology is, whether it's TikTok, my son uses TikTok, or another social media account, you want to be able to understand what they're seeing and feeling through their own personal lens and their own personal lived experience.
What are some of the things you've learned from your son?
I would say, oh gosh, what haven't I learned as a parent? What haven't I learned from my son? Being a parent is probably the best and worst learning experience one can have. Being a parent definitely highlights your strengths and your negatives as well. Um, Gosh, what is the number one experience I've learned from my son? I think just the fact that he's his own person. Not to box him in. He's not me. He may have similar qualities that I have, but overall, he's his own individual. And to just nurture that, respect that, don't put that burden on him to, change who he is and just to really embrace who he is, all his quirks, all his qualities, good and bad.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
I do quite a bit to help my own mental health. I start every day off with an exercise routine. I feel like just that physical movement really helps getting those endorphins out. If I don't exercise in the morning, I just feel like it negatively sets the course for the rest of my day. I am almost I am an exercise addict, I would say. Just being able to move and being able to it's almost like a meditative act for me when I exercise. That's number one. That just sets the course for having a really great day. I would say the second thing that I do is to really honor that I am an introvert and I need downtime. I love people. I love my friends and family, but I need downtime. Whether that downtime is reading a book or just like relaxing, maybe taking a bath, engaging in, self-care activities like that. I would say that I just need to honor that. And when I don't honor that, that's when I start getting really anxious and even a little depressed.
With exercise, how important is it to take care of both physical and mental health at the same time?
Yeah, I always tell people that it's a trifecta of health. You want to make sure that you are taking care of your mental health, your physical health, and also your psychological well-being. All of those things really need to perfectly come together. When I have clients who are trying to take care of their mental health and not their physical health, I stop them in their tracks and I tell them that they have to do something to honor their physical health. Even if it's just taking a walk or even walking around in circles in their home. But I mean, in this day and age, there are so many things we can do, especially I'm in Colorado, and there are so many active individuals in Colorado. But yeah, honoring both your mental health with everything else you're doing is just so important.
What motivates you?
I would say that I personally am intrinsically motivated. I've always been motivated. I don't know where that stems from. I do think motivation is not, I don't know if it's necessarily a learned quality. I think that motivation is intrinsic. And I've just always been the type of individual that has worked numerous jobs from the time I was 12 years old. It's a combination of wanting to feel like I'm making a difference, wanting to feel successful, wanting to be the best version of myself, and really wanting to live my best life.
Yeah, you can definitely hear the passion in your voice, how you really enjoy doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What would you say to anyone going through a tough time?
I would say that everything in life will pass. Everything in life is temporary, the good and the bad, which is hard to hear because you want the good to last forever. You never want the good to end.
Right.
But the bad, just like the good, will come to an end. Um, so we all live in, a short duration, and to make sure that when you're going through a tough time, what is it you need? What can you do to nurture yourself? Is it reaching out to your friends and family and just saying, hey, I'm going through a tough time. I just want to let you guys know. Is it taking a step back from some of your responsibilities? Or is it maybe taking a step forward and saying, I need to be doing more to help myself? I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to join this organization. It's really taking account of what it is you need because everybody is different, everybody's needs are different, and it's not a one size fits all approach.
Where do you want to see your mission in the next few years?
I'm actually publishing a book that will come out next month that
Oh,
speaks to
wow.
traumatic growth. Thank you. It's been a labor of love, a lifelong journey. I've been working on it for about 15 plus years, and it's finally coming to fruition. I want to be an advocate for post-traumatic growth and resiliency. I feel like going through an event like 9/11 myself has really just helped me develop the insight. I still go through times of anxiety and depression, which is hard. I know that I'm going to come out of them, but I want everybody to recognize that there is light at the end of the tunnel and you can achieve growth and resiliency after trauma. You can come out of a difficult situation and be a better version of yourself than you were before.
Can you tell me about the book?
Absolutely. So it's called Silver Linings, and it chronicles my experience moving to New York in my very early 20s, working for a prominent Wall Street firm. And then it actually goes into detail about my experience. I worked in World Trade Center 7. And on that day, I actually saw when the first plane, I saw right after the first plane hit, and the effects, which I don't know how much detail you want me to go into on this interview,
Yeah,
but
whatever you want.
okay. Yeah, it was very, very traumatic. So I actually was in the gym in World Trade Center 7. The top gym had floor to ceiling windows, and I had this glorious, beautiful view of the Twin Towers and the Henry Hudson River below. When the first plane hit, I was actually in the locker room readying myself for work, and I felt the plane hit. It felt like an earthquake. I've never been in an earthquake. It felt like an explosion. I didn't know what to make of it. I ran out of the locker room and I saw some really horrific images, as you can imagine. And after that, I tried to get out of the building. I couldn't escape. We were trapped in the lobby for about 25 minutes. The second plane hit, and we thought that part of the tower actually fell onto our roof, and we felt like we were sitting ducks. Our entrance shared an entrance with the Twin Towers, and the entrance was actually blockaded by all of the debris that was falling from the towers. So we couldn't just walk out of the building. We did not know how to escape at that point. And then after that, I actually found a few of my colleagues that I had just met. I just moved to New York. I just started working on Wall Street. And we ended up walking away from ground zero. We were evacuated out of the building because I lived the closest to ground zero out of all of us. We eventually made it back to my apartment and kind of took stock. We called our friends, we called our families, turned on the news. And then after that, I just could not. I feel like I couldn't get a handle on anything. I was just so depressed. I was anxious. I felt so guilty that I had lived and I had witnessed others fall to their deaths and I had witnessed other people die. And the guilt was just so consuming and so powerful that I felt like I was just going through the motions in life. I wasn't living my life. So the book speaks to going through that period and then my own personal discovery of seeking out mental health therapists, seeking out psychiatrists for medication management, and really figuring out what it was I needed to get through that time. And then after that, really just developing post traumatic growth and developing resilience after going through the attacks. And it chronicles my story, pursuing a career in mental health, going back to school, and then starting my own company.
What was it like getting all your thoughts, ideas, feelings out on the page?
It was the most cathartic experience ever. There's actually a therapeutic technique called narrative therapy, and it's just simply journaling, free association, journaling your thoughts, journaling your feelings, and just getting everything that is stuck inside you out and putting pen to paper. And honestly, I felt like with my book, that's what I went through. I put myself through narrative therapy. And yeah, it was just a very cathartic experience.
How can people reach out to you and learn more?
Sure, they can either follow me on social media or they can go to our website, silverliningsmh.com. Also, there's another website specifically for the book. It's silverliningsinstitute.com. And then they can also look me up on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and if anybody needs any resources for mental health, I will do my best to provide them with whatever resources I can.